Now I'm going to show you the most basic and fundamental concept on how the Android operating system works. And that's going from one activity to another activity using intents. Let's take a look at the code. So here we have our first activity. You can tell because it's labeled first activity. And we have in our first activity a button right here called second activity and labeled go second activity. This is the button we're going to want to click to go to another screen. If we go over here to our activity second.xml, you'll see that it is indeed labeled second activity. And we have a button right here that says first activity and is appropriately named go first activité, which is, I think, the first time Android Studio has ever told me there was a typo in a word and actually been correct. If we go over here to our first activity, we should see that on Create Options menu and on Options Selected are here as per norm. But I've done some extra work here and added a button, and I've gotten a reference to that button to point to the Go Second Activity button. And then I've added a listener on that button for when someone presses it. There are two lines here, and although it's very short, they're very key in how you will do this in the future. And that's creating an intent and then passing that intent to a method call to start the activity. So what is that intent made of? Well, it looks like these parameters are view.getContext, which is a context object, and then secondActivity.class. Now that makes this intent here an explicit intent, which means that we have a context and a particular class that we want to actually point to. And it's going to point that particular intent towards this second activity class. Now if you were to run this on your own, you would be surprised to find that it does not work. And that's because there's one more step. The Android manifest. If you've looked in your manifest before, you will have seen this particular line. And it's a name, a label, and an intent filter. Well, all one needs to do in order to reference a new activity is create a new activity tag. Because we are friends and in the exact same package, we can just do .secondActivity. And after this is put in there, that first activity intent, when this is run, will actually fire off our second activity. So that's half the battle. The other half of the battle is going back. So I've created, again, a button as a member variable. And then after that, I went ahead and found that particular button in our activity second view. And then I've set another listener, just the same as before. In this listener, it looks exactly the same as the first one, except for I'm pointing explicitly to firstActivity.class. Let's see if this actually runs. We'll move over here to our Genymotion emulator. And here we have our first activity. And sure enough, the second activity comes up. And we can go back and forth and back and forth forever and ever and not have to worry about it because Android is managing our memory for us. And that is how you do the most fundamental action in Android, which is moving from one activity to another.